அருட்பெரும் ஜோதி அருட்பெரும் ஜோதி தனிப்பெரும் கருணை அருட்பெரும் ஜோதி. May all sentient beings live in happiness. May the divine feet of Vallalar be praised. My dear brothers and sisters in spirit, in our last class, we discussed Shiva Yoga. I told you, with the Shiva Yoga, our malas are dissolved and discarded. And what is the way? The only way is total surrender and total humility before God. And Vallalar Swami describes it in a beautiful verse. அருளார் ஜோதி என்னுள் விளங்க அளித்த காலத்தே அடியே என் குறைகள் யாவும் தவிர்ந்தது இந்த ஞானத்தை. அருளார் ஜோதி என்னுள் விளங்க அளித்த காலத்தே குறைகள் அடியேன் குறைகள் யாவும் தவிர்ந்தது இந்த ஞானத்தை. Says, O Lord, when you blessed me with your light of compassion and got seated in my body, soul and psyche, all my malas were burnt away and sent away from my body once for all. And this happened not after death. This is important for Sanmarga. In the Nyalate, while I am alive upon the earth. So the soul is purified only by the darshan of Shiva. That is why Shiva darshan is placed before Shiva Yoga. This stage is called in Vedanta, Siddhanta and Siddha literature as Jivan Mukti state, a liberated soul even while living on earth in the human form. And Vallalar Swami calls it with a different name. He calls it as Amala Yoga. See, Jivan Mukti is a term, technical term, but it doesn't describe anything. But Vallalar, being a scientist, always explains every word he uses. Amala Yoga means, Mala means stains, blemishes, limitations of the human condition. Amala means opposite of that, without Mala. So this yoga, Amala Yoga, takes you beyond the blemishes of the soul, and the soul gets purified. In fact, Shiva Yoga itself is a vast topic. It contains within itself many types of subordinate yogas. And we don't find the names of those yogas in the texts of Saiva Siddhanta. But Vallalar, out of his own personal experience of Lord Shiva, has tabulated and listed out all the various stages of Shiva Yoga, because he was a scientist. After all, what is science? It must tell you all the stages of a process, and in every stage it must give you all the details. Otherwise technology cannot be produced, gadgets cannot be produced. So Vallalar Swami is always careful about giving us all the details in all the stages. So he gives a lot of yogas before you attain complete Shiva Yoga, but we cannot enter into all those yogas. I'm afraid we don't have time for all that. I'll mention only 5 important yogas mentioned by Vallalar in various verses in his Thiruvarutpa. The first is this Amala Yoga, second is Tharpara Yoga, the third one is called Chitpara Yoga, and the fourth one is called Ananda Yoga, and the last one is called Sachidananda Yoga. Even after that, he gives us many yogas. Let us see whether we have time for all those things. Now, in the last class I told you, Shiva Yoga, in the process of Shiva Yoga uniting with Shiva, it was described as seeing the feet and crown of Shiva, Adi, Mudi, Kanudal. Seeing the feet, Adi, and seeing the crown, Mudi, of Shiva. This is a technical term used in Saivism and Saiva Siddhanta, and Vallalar also accepts it. But as usual, he clarifies it with his own modifications. See, he adds one more word, Nadu. See, if you see a man, the body contains not only the feet and the crown, but also the face. He calls it Nadu, middle, the below, above, and the middle. So one must know all the 3 stages of something. So he calls God's face as Nadu. So here, with this action of seeing Adi, Vallalar says, Amala Yoga burns away all the 5 malas. And in a beautiful verse, he sings, Uyangu Malangal Aindum Pasayatru Vendu Olindade Un Perarul Sit Jodi Vaikum Tarunam Andade. Uyangu Malangal Aindum Pasayatru Vendade Un Perarul Sit Jodi Vaikum Tarunam Vandade. Now we are suffering from all the 5 malas. And when God gives us during Shiva Yoga his Sit Jodi, his light of wisdom, what happens? All these 5 malas are completely destroyed and the soul becomes purified. And what happens to the soul? How this happens? He explains the process. Now we are having the malas because we are clutching them through our desires. See, our egoistic consciousness gives us on our mala, our attachment to worldliness and its attractions gives us maya of 3 kinds, and our past karma we have inherited from our past births. These are all our own making, since we are attaching ourselves, constantly identifying ourselves with these worldliness and our actions, selfish actions. We have them. Once you lose the hold and clutch on them, instead you clutch the divine feet of Shiva, what happens? Pasayatru, pasai means cement, bond. So when there is no cement, what happens? The stones, the bricks will automatically fall away. In the same way, when you are not attached to the worldly things, instead when you get attached to Shiva, only Shiva will remain in your soul and mind and body, and all these 5 malas will drop by themselves. And how does it happen? And Swami says, by pure heat. This pure heat is generated by seeing the divine feet of Shiva. So it burns away all the 5 malas. That is what we see in the temple at Vadalur. Before seeing the Lord, Arutperin Jodi, a, a mirror is placed there. What is the mirror? It is a symbol of our soul, Atman. And even before seeing that screen of mirror, there are placed 7 colored screens. They show our screens of ignorance caused by these malas. And Swami says how to burn them only with the pure heat caused by our Jivakarunya and prayer to the Lord. When God, Shiva, answers the prayer and enters into our body, mind, soul complex, that pure heat of God, of compassion, it will burn away all these screens, and we could see ourself, our Atman as the mirror, and through that Atman mirror we could see Lord Arutperum Jyoti. So we, during Amala Yoga, we are given a glimpse of the divine feet of the Lord, and I told you it is known as seeing the feet of the Lord. Now, what is the yogic part of this phrase and the description? Why Shiva's this action is called seeing the feet? What is the significance of the word feet in yogic terminology? I have already told you in Shiva Yoga, feet means our breath. Our breath. Idakala, Pingala, Sushumna, Sulumunai, Nadi. So these breath, 2 breaths, are called divine feet of Lord. So when you see the feet of Lord, you are literally seeing the divine breath of God. You are literally seeing the breath of God. It is called as Vasi. The very word, Tamil word Vasi, means if you split it etymologically into 2 letters, Va-Si. Va means Lord's power of compassion or breath. Only with that Vega call, it is called unburnable air or breath or divine breath. In other religions it is called Ruah, it is called Holy Spirit, Holy Ghost, like that. That is the ultimate power of God. And Chi means Shiva. So Vasi, the very word contains Shiva as well as his power of creation. So when you attain Vasi, the inner breath, what happens? Shiva enters into your body, mind and soul complex. And what is this Vasi? What is this inner breath? And once it is already there, even now, but unfortunately the door is closed at the Mooladhara. Unless it is awakened, this Vasi cannot function. Some guru must initiate with his own power and remove this block. Then what will happen? Your Vasi will start from Mooladhara, rise up to your crane, your crown, and then it will descend again to Mooladhara. This will go on automatically. Now what is happening now in our breath? Our breath is atmospheric air going through the nose and lungs, and our body takes oxygen and sends away through exhalation this carbon dioxide. It is happening automatically. But during Vasi Yoga, we are attempting to get Vasi by force, consciously. And how many people actually succeed in this attempt is $1 million question. Only very rarely people attain, because it is the ultimate form of yoga, contact with divinity itself, with Shiva itself. Okay, let us forget it. But Swami says, when you have seen Shiva, he will enter into your body gives a scientific indication here through your Vasi. And Swami sings beautifully. வாசி நடத்தி தருவாண்டி ஒரு வாசியிலே இங்கு வருவாண்டி. See, this Vasi inner breath through the central column will automatically function without your own effort. And God will enter into your body through that Vasi. In Tiruvasagam, we see Lord Shiva entering into the palace of Pandya king upon a horse. Horse is called Pari. Pari is also a pseudonym for, synonym for Vasi. Pari, Parivattam, Vegakal, Amudakalai. So there are hundreds of synonyms and alternative names for this Vasi. Here we have to remember only one thing. Vasi nadati tarvandi. That Vasi you should not cultivate, you should not practice it, forcefully do it. It must automatically run. As now our breath is, atmospheric breath is automatically going inside and coming outside. So that condition denotes this human body is transformed into a divine body. So this is called Adi Kanudal. Adi Kanudal. When Vasi is conducted automatically by Shiva in your body, you have already seen the divine feet of Shiva. It is Adi Kanudal. This is one lesson of Amala Yoga. Now I hope you will understand what is meant by Amala Yoga. Here, as usual, Vallalar gives us a shortcut, an alternative method to attain this Vasi Yoga. He says, though it sounds very simple, it's very difficult for humans because our very nature is self-centered. And Swami says, there should not be even an iota of selfishness in you. You must surrender totally to God Shiva. And there will be perfect humility, 100% humility when you go to Shiva and prostrate before him. And in the oral teachings, Swami says, he explains this process. தாழும் குணம் வந்தால் அனைத்தையும் பெற்றுக்கொள்ளலாம். God will see whether you are left with any egoistic or egotistical consciousness. And he will not enter into your mind or soul. When he sees that you have totally emptied your consciousness of all egoism, then only he will come and enter into your body. That is why Swami says, my son, when you approach Shiva, when you pray to Shiva, totally abstain from all thoughts of self-interest. Total surrender is the only way to attain Shiva. But that is why Vallalar Swami says, he puts a lot of emphasis on Bhakti Yoga because it is the easiest thing. Moreover, when you practice other forms of yoga, a lot of heat, impure heat will be produced in your Muladhara. You might have constipation, you might have piles, you might have ulcers, other sorts of diseases caused by this impure heat. And the only way to cure them is through crying. And normally hear this come on, try again until you succeed. And Vallalar Swami rephrases it as cry and cry again until you see the feet of Lord. அழுதால் உன்னை பெறலாமே, Saint Manikavasa Swami says in Tiruvasagam, and showed us the way to attain Shiva is to cry for his darshan. And Vallalar Swami, being a disciple of Manikavasa Swami, he took hold of this sentence from Tiruvasagam. He was always crying for the darshan of the Lord, And one of his biographers reports that there were 2 canals on his cheek because of his constant flow of tears. Okay, now this replacement of Vasi Yoga, not replacement, another technique Vallalar offers us. Whoever is capable of doing that can practice it. He says, practice Jiva Karunya. Make compassion as a way of life. Every moment you must be constantly in dayavu or compassion, and make your life itself totally a way of compassion, a life of compassion. Then what will happen? And he gives some 2 dictums. தியான மயமானால் பொசிப்பு மாறும், தயவு மயமானால் உடலே மாறும். You see, when you are always in meditation, he says the very perception will change. Very perception will change. For instance, we see in the life of Saint Patinathar, Shiva gives Patinathar a hint. My son, you are looking for enlightenment. I will give you a scientific indication. Go and eat pei karumbu. See, it will taste bitter. It will taste bitter. But instead of tasting bitter, if it tastes sweet for you, then you know that you have attained liberation, salvation, enlightenment. So, when dayavu mayaman, when you are all meditation, you are always in meditation, samadhi state, sahaja samadhi state, what happens? Your very perception changes. Everything will be sweet and beautiful. There will be no ugliness in the entire world. William Blake, the poet, put it beautifully. He was himself a mystic. He said, when the doors of perception are cleansed, you will look at the world as it is, that is beautiful. Everything will be beautiful, like a painting of great painters like Da Vinci. And every sight will be like a statue chiseled by great sculptors like Michelangelo. So this meditation will change your perception. And as usual, Vallalar Swami goes one step further and says, Dayavu mayamanal udale marum. So your body is transformed from being a human body into a divine body. And what happens? As an indication, your human breath will be transformed. Human breath is going through the 2 nostrils, Edagala, Pingala, and divine breath will go through your central column and it will be circulating inside your head. Once you attain this Vasi, what happens? You will be free from hunger, sleep, thirst, and tiredness. You won't need any food or water or even atmospheric air. See, as in our human condition, we are dependent upon God for 3 things: food and water, air, and knowledge. So at this first stage, you have done away with the need for food, and your body will automatically create its own body. Well, here Swami Vallalar brings back a very ancient technique of original Saivism. When I say original Saivism, I mean the practice that happened some 5,000 years ago. Even in the Indus Valley civilization and in Greece, you find Sivalingas. So according to some historians, of religion, Saivism is the most ancient form. And why was it called Saivism? Only because of food. You have to do away with the food. Not only, see, vegetarianism and veganism are given more importance by Vallalar, because once you take non-vegetarian food, well, this dayavu, compassion will go. And once compassion is lost in your mind, you cannot expect any enlightenment or any salvation, because every action has got its own reaction. If you kill, you will be killed. Patnathar says, if you kill, you will be killed. If you eat, you will be eaten. Kondranai anaitum anaitum ninai kondrana. Tindranai anaitum anaitum ninai tindrana. And why does Vallalar put a lot of emphasis on plant food? See, plants have the power of creating their own food with the process of photosynthesis. They are able to create their own food. They don't go begging for their food in front of any humans. Even great saints like the Buddha, they had to beg for their food, because during the animal kingdom, during the course of evolution, we have forgotten the ancient habit of the plants creating our own food. We depend upon food from the animals and the plants. What the plants store in their bodies, we steal them. We are all thieves, stealing food from plants. And Vallalar Swami asks us to go beyond veganism, because even plants, sorry to say this, I don't know how many people will be able to digest it, but it is my duty to tell you the ultimate secret of Saivism and Vallalar's Sutta Sanmana. Because Saivism means no organic food, not eating any food. It's only a temporary measure. Even vegetarianism and veganism, you are allowed to use only as a temporary measure. Even plants have life, even they have emotions. Jagdish Chandra Bose demonstrated it before Bernard Shaw. He was frightened. Oh, I am a vegetarian. What am I to eat after seeing this? The plant, when I pluck a fruit or a leaf from a plant, it suffers a lot. The graph shows it. What am I going to eat? At that time, he did not hear about Vallalar or the system of food. That is why Vallalar Swami gives us 5 steps. Slowly, one after another, you must follow it. Even Vallalar Swami followed it in 15 years. It took 15 years for him to come to the last stage of doing away totally with plant food and remaining only with boiled water and calcined metals of iron and copper and other minerals and metals. And Swami says one can survive. When to do this? Only when Amrita is secreted in your body. And Vallalar has given us a complete science of ambrosia. He says this human body is capable of producing 12 types of ambrosia. We have already seen it in my lecture on science of nutrition. Okay. So this is going to be our next yoga. We are going to see that. So pure Saivism means you must get away from this habit of food, first from non-vegetarian food and then from animal products like milk products, and enter into veganism, stay there for 5 or 6 years and slowly reduce it. And once this ambrosia is secreted into your mouth from the crown, you can stop taking all foods. Not before that. It's very dangerous yoga. Okay. Now we have seen the Amala yoga. The second yoga is called Tharpara Yoga. And Swami mentions this in many verses. For instance, in his Kirtana on வெண்ணிலா, தன்னை ஏறிந்த இன்பம் ஒரு வெண்ணிலவே, ஒரு தந்திரம் நீ சொல்ல வேண்டும் வெண்ணிலா. ஓ full moon, tell me a secret with which I could see my Atman and have self-realization. It's a wonderful treatise on self-knowledge. We'll talk about it later. He goes beyond the teachings of the New Age gurus of self-awareness, self-remembering and self-knowledge. Well, we'll talk about it later. And in another Kirtana, starting with the first line, and even the title is called Nalla Marundu, good medicine. Nalla Marundu Immarundu, Sugam Nalgum Vaidya Nada Marundu. In that Kirtana or lyric, Swami mentions this Tharpara Yogam and Sirpara Yogam. And what is this Tharpara Yogam? See, Param means transcendental, beyond human. So, Param is the realm beyond the human condition. And when he says Tharparam, the word means to live in the transcendental realm. Tan plus Param becomes Tharparam. That is, there is another way to split it etymologically. Tat kotal Param. That's the beauty of the Tamil grammar. Tat Padam. So, it is at once a divine state as well as a state below Shiva's realm. Tan Padam means, Tan means Anma. This Anma goes beyond the human condition and enters into the transcendental level of Parasakti, you can say. Tharparam Yogam. So, with the Tharpara Yoga, this purified soul enters into the transcendental realm. Tharpara Yogam. Tanmayamagi, he explains it. Tanmayamagi Tharparatte irundhen, he says. Tanmayam means self-sustaining. Now we depend upon nature or God for three things I told: food, water and air. But God is self-satisfied, self-contained. He is self-reliant. He doesn't need anything from outside, from external nature. In the same way, the human condition must also be transformed into an independent condition. What is meant by mukti? Release or freedom. Freedom from what? Freedom from the clutches of nature in the form of the cycle of birth and death. You must be totally free from all the laws of nature. And if you go into the Siddha state, you command nature. So, Siddhas were originally scientists, far better scientists than present day scientists. Well, that is another topic. Okay, Tharparam means you become self-contained. Your body produces its own food. And how does this happen? And Swami says this is called seeing the nadu or face of Shiva. Sivathin mugathai kanudal. Where is Shiva? Shiva is here, manifested in billions and billions of beings. So, if you are able to see Shiva inside every being, whenever you see a being, it could be a plant, a blade of grass, it could be an animal like a dog, it could be a tree, a mango tree, or it could be a bird, or any being or any human, irrespective of his caste or creed or religion or color or language or race. No, don't bother about all those things. When you see a being, you are seeing not a being, but Shiva himself, incarnation of Shiva himself. If you attain that level, you have seen Shiva's face. When you see the face of any human being or any animal or plant, you are seeing only the Arul Jodi, the light of compassion of Shiva in that being. Well, you have attained that level of Tharpara. Then what happens? And that is the way of compassion, and God will enter into your body and stay with you forever. And Vedantins like Taimana Swami, they used to describe their non-dualistic experience, Advaitic experience, in words like this: பார்க்குமிடமெங்கும் ஒரு நீக்கமர நிறைந்த பரிபூர்ண ஆனந்தமே. Watch the words. பார்க்கும் இடம் எங்கும். O God of absolute bliss, Paripurna Anandame, I see everywhere, in all the places, only you. பார்க்குமிடம் எங்கும் ஒரு நீக்கமர நிறைந்த Paripurna Anandame, without any gap or interval, in all the places I see only you. பார்க்குமிடம் எங்கும் ஒரு நீக்கமர நிறைந்த Paripurna Anandame. And Vallalar rephrases it and changes it. He doesn't say பார்க்கும் இடமெங்கும், பார்க்கும் உயிரெங்கும், not only in all places, in all the beings. உயிரெல்லாம் ஒரு நீ திருநடம் புரியும் திருப்பொதுவென தெரிந்தேன். See, every being, every soul is the dancing hall of Chidambaram, in which you are eternally dancing, oh my Lord. உயிரெல்லாம் ஒரு நீ திருநடம் புரியும் திருப்பொதுவென தெரிந்தேன். Every being is a Chidambaram. Lord is actually, virtually dancing inside that soul. So every being is God. Jivanena, Sivanena, very late. Tirumular Swami told us long ago. There is no difference between Jiva and Siva. Unfortunately, we have been brainwashed into believing that we are only Jivas with limited powers and limited knowledge and limited love. That is wrong. Well, this identification must change. When you identify yourself as Shiva, as Vallalar did, he signed only as Chidambaram Ramalingam. His father's name was Ramaya Pillai, but he never put his initial as R. He always signed as Chidambaram Ramalingam Pillai. His identification had changed into a divine one. Unless this identification changes, you cannot expect any change in your body or mind or in your soul. This is the gist of Vallalar's teaching on compassion. And again, one powerful verse often quoted by Sanmargis is there. He says, எத்துணையும் பேதமுறாது எவ்வுயிரும் தம்முயிர் போல் எண்ணி ஒத்து உள்ளே உவக்கின்றார் யாவர் அவர் உளம்தான் சுத்த சித்துருவாய் எம்பெருமான் திருநடம் புரியும் திருப்பொதுவென தெரிந்தேன். At last, I discovered the exact place of God. Where is it? It is inside the souls of only some people. Who are those people? I want to serve their feet. அவர் அடிக்கு ஏவல் செய்ய என் சிந்தை விளைந்ததாலோ, says, my mind, my heart, it yearned to serve their feet. He says, a great soul like Vallalar, when he says, I want to serve the feet of those devotees, not devotees, compassionate souls, who considered every being as himself. Etunayum means the size of a seed of gingerly, gingerly. Etunayum, ellalavum, bedamuradu, there is no difference between that being and myself, my being. It's a very, well, it is a turning point in evolution. Darwin said only violence and survival of the fittest makes evolution possible. Could be, it could have been in the animal kingdom. But when you come to the human kingdom, what happens? Instead of violence, instead of killing other animals for food, you cooperate, you help others. Dayavu, the compassion, replaces violence. Only when you are compassionate, you are qualified to be called a human being. And when that compassion becomes 100%, you become Shiva. See, this is the shortcut Vallalar Swami gives us in the form of his yoga of compassion. So, எத்துணையும் பேதமுறாது எவ்வுயிரும் தம்முயிர் போல் எண்ணி ஒத்து உள்ளே உவக்கின்றார். They are glad to see every being. Are we glad to see other beings? Are we glad to see people, particularly lowly people, downtrodden people? No, we hate them. We want to move away from them. This is because of our stain of Amala and self-interest. Okay, now this gives us, and Swami says, this gives us an Omkara body. It is called Chitpara Yoga. The next stage is Chitpara Yoga. What is meant by Chitparam? Param means transcendental realm. Chit means consciousness and consciousness force, as in Sat, Sit, Ananda. That itself is a yoga. We are going to see it later, Sachidananda Yoga. Here, Chit means wisdom and power of wisdom, consciousness as well as its power, divine consciousness and powers born of divine consciousness. தன்மயமாகி தற்பரமானது. தற்பரம் தன்னை கடந்து தனி உருவாகி சிற்பரத்துள் நின்றது பாரீர் திருச்சிற்றம்பலத்தே திருநட ஜோதி. Swami says. So, Chitparam means divine consciousness, all powerful, almighty. It means omniscience as well as omnipotence. And this is called seeing the seeing the face of God. Seeing the crown of God. What is the scientific indication? What is there in the crown? Ambrosia of Shiva. Shivananda Tain. Swami calls it honey of Shivananda. You will at once feel the bliss of Shivananda in your consciousness, and your tongue will taste the honey of Shivananda. So, you taste the ambrosia. When you attain Chitpara Yoga, what happens? Your human head, the relative dying human head is transformed into an undying head of Shiva. It is called Sagathalai in the phraseology of Siddhas. Sagathalai, Vehakal, Pokapunar. This is the formula for longevity as well as immortality and divinity given by Siddhas. Vallalar also accepts it. So, your dying head, it is being transformed into an undying head of Shiva. And what do you find in Shiva's head? Two new organs arise and they are developed. What are they? The divine Ganges and the divine full moon. The divine Ganges give you Pogapunal non-flowing liquid. It will not leave your body, it will stay in your body and it will be constantly giving you water and food like an eternal spring. That is why it is called Pogapunal. And the full moon will give you Vega Kal. It is not air, mere air. It is in the form of light, space and breath. All these three things are combined in Vega Kal. It is called Shiva's breath or divine breath. It is given by the Soma. That is why Shiva is called Soma Sundaran. So, two new organs are, they are already there, but they are not awakened by us. With Shiva Yoga, these two organs are developed in the human head, and they are called Vegakal, Sagathalai, Vegakal, Pohapunar. Okay, so when you have this ambrosia of Shiva secreting from the crown into through the uvula into your tongue, well, you will not need any other food or water forever for your entire lifetime, like Shiva. And when you have this breath, moonlight of breath, divine breath, what happens? You will have no need for air. So you will have Omkara body. And what is an Omkara body? And Swami gives us a scientific detail here. Dinakaran போன்ற தேகம் வேண்டுமென்றேன் விரைந்தளித்தான் எனக்கே. See, I prayed and pleaded to Shiva to give me a body like that of sun. Why does he ask for a body like sun? Sun is self-luminous and self-contained. It produces its own food. It doesn't expect any other planet for its survival. It is self-luminous, self-contained, and it is always giving. That's its beauty. Without the energy of sunlight, all the living beings upon earth will die. What is the source of all energy upon earth? Sunlight. So Vallalar Swami asked God for a body like that of the sun, and he says, Viraindalithan yanake. Seeing his qualification as a compassionate being, God gave him a body like that of sun. And here Vallalar Swami, being a scientist, gives us another indication, another reason why he wanted a body like the sun. For the present situation, this is the answer. I don't know how many people will be able to digest this fact. Now we are undergoing a very large crisis in the history of humanity. All of us are suffering from one virus. Hundreds of thousands of people have died so far. What is the permanent solution? And some scientists are telling us or forewarning us that we might have in future still more dangerous viruses. And what are we going to do about that? And Swami says, once you have this pure body and Omkara body, you'll be free from all viruses. They could never enter into your body. Even if they enter into your body, they cannot stay there, they will get away from it. Because inside the body of the pure body and the Omkara body, an atmosphere is created differently. In that different atmosphere, these viruses cannot survive. Either they will not at all enter into your body, or even if they enter, they will soon get away from your body. That is why Swami says, Dinagaran pol sagada dehamudaiyore vidukulathar. See, we are all Pudukulathar. See, with our human body, all humans are called Pudukulathar. See, more than 60% of our body, according to some biologists, they contain only aliens, antibodies. We can call them germs, viruses, bacteria, proactive. Anyhow, they are not human cells. We have got in our bodies only 40% in the form of cells. The remaining 60% is only foreign beings, parasites in our body. That is why we have to eat so much of food. Vallalar ate very little, and one handful of rice kept him alive for 3 months, according to one report of his biographer. Okay, now this sun-like body will be given in Tharpara Yoga. Well, and we have, it's already late. We have 2 more yogas called Ananda Yoga and Sachidananda Yoga. Well, they might take another hour, so I think it would be better to postpone discussing them for the next class. So with that I would like to conclude. Arupperum Jodi, Arupperum Jodi, Taniperum Karunai, Arupperum Jodi. May all sentient beings live in happiness, and may the divine feet of Vallalar be praised. Thank you.